Chapter 5, Part 2 of the Boy Scout Aviators by George Durston. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Kangaroo. On the Trail, Part 2. Morning saw them up on time and off to Ealing. There, Colonel Throckmorton gave them their orders. "I've requisitioned motorcycles for you," he said. "Make sure of the location of the house, so that you can mark it on an ordnance map for me. Then use your own judgment, but find the next house. I've had letters prepared for you that will introduce you to either the mayor or the military commander in any town you reach, and you will get quarters for the night if you need them. Where do you think your search will lead you, Fleming?" He eyed Harry sharply as he asked the question. "Somewhere on the east coast, I think, sir," replied Harry. "Well, that remains to be seen. Report by telegraph using this code. It's a simplified version of the official code, but it contains all you will need to use. That is all." Finding the house, when they started on their motorcycles, did not prove as difficult a task as Harry had feared it might. They both remembered a number of places they had marked from the cab windows, and it was not long before they were sure they were drawing near. "I remember that hill," said Harry. "By Jove, yes, there it is. On top of that hill, do you see? We won't go much nearer. I don't want them to see us by any chance. All we need is to notice which way they're signaling." They watched the house for some time before there was any sign of life, and then it was only the flashes they saw. Since the previous day some sort of cover had been provided for the man who did the signaling. "What do you make of it, Dick?" asked Harry eagerly, after the flashing had continued for some moments. "It looks to me as if they were flashing toward the north and a little toward the west," said Dick, puzzled. "That's the way it seems to be, too," agreed Harry. "That isn't what we expected, either, is it? Of course we can't be sure." "No, but it certainly looks that way. Well, we can't make sure from here, but we've got to do it somehow. I tell you what. We'll circle around and get northwest of the house. Then we ought to be able to tell a good deal better. And if we get far enough around, I don't believe they'll see us, or pay any attention to us if they do." So they mounted their machines again, and in a few moments were speeding toward a new and better spot from which to spy on the house. But this, when they reached it, only confirmed their first guess. The signals were much more plainly visible here, and it was obvious now, as it had not been before, that the screen they had noticed had been erected as much to concentrate the flashes and make them more easily visible to a receiving station as to conceal the operator. So they turned and figured a straight line as well as they could from the spot where the flashes were made. Harry had a map with them, and on this he marked, as well as he could, the location of the house. Then he drew a line from it to the northwest. "The next station must be on this line somewhere," he said. "We'll stick to it. There's a road, you see, that we can follow that's almost straight. And as soon as we come to a high building we ought to be able to see both flashes, the ones that are being sent from that house, and the answering signals. Do you see?" "Yes, that'll be fine," said Dick. "Come on." "Not so fast," said a harsh voice behind them. They spun around, and there, grinning a little, but looking highly determined and dangerous, was the same man they had seen the day before, and who had questioned them when the tire of their taxicab blew out. But now he was not in uniform, but in a plain suit of clothes. "So you're spying on my house, are you?" he said. And you lied to me yesterday. No troops were sent to Croydon at all." "Well, you hadn't any business to ask us," said Dick pluckily. "If you hadn't asked us any questions, we'd have told you no lies." "I think perhaps you know too much," said the spy, nodding his head. "You had better come with me. We will look after you in this house that interests you so greatly." He made a movement forward. His hand dropped on Dick's shoulder, but as it did so, Harry's feet left the ground. He aimed for the spy's legs, just below the knee, and brought him to the ground with a beautiful driving tackle, the sort he had learned in his American football days. It was the one attack of all others that the spy did not anticipate, if indeed he looked for any resistance at all. He wasn't a football player, so he didn't know how to let his body give and strike the ground limply. The result was that his head struck a piece of hard ground with abnormal violence, and he lay prone and very still. "Oh, that was ripping, Harry!" cried Dick. "But do you think you've killed him?" "Killed him? No," said Harry with a laugh. "He's tougher than that, Dick." But he looked ruefully at the spy. "I wish I knew what to do with him," he said. "He'll come to in a little while, but—" "We can get away while he's still out," said Dick quickly. "He can't follow us, and we can get such a start with our motorcycles." "Yes, but he'll know their game is up," said Harry. "Don't you see, Dick? He'll tell them they're suspected, and that's all they need in the way of warning. When men are doing anything as desperate as the sort of work they're up to in that house, they take no more chances than they have to. They'd be off at once and start up somewhere else. We only stumbled on this by mere accident. They might be able to work for weeks if they were warned." "Oh, I never thought of that! What are we to do, then?" "I wish I knew whether anyone saw us from that house, or if they didn't." "Well, we'll have to risk that, Dick. Do you see that house over there? It's all boarded up. It must be empty." "Yes, I see it." Dick caught Harry's idea at once this time, and began measuring with his eye the distance to the little house of which Harry had spoken. "It's all downhill. I think we can manage it all right." "We'll try, anyhow," said Harry. "But first we'd better tie up his hands and feet. He's too strong for the pair of us, I'm afraid, if he should come to." Once that was done, they began to drag the spy toward the house. Half carrying, half pulling, they got him down the slope, and with a last great effort lifted him through a window, which, despoiled of glass, had been boarded up. They were as gentle as they could be, for the idea of hurting a helpless man, even though he was a spy, went against the grain. "But we can't be too particular," said Harry, and he brought it on himself. "I'm afraid he'll have worse than this to face later on." They dumped him through the window, from which they had taken the boards. Then they made their own way inside, and Harry began to truss up the prisoner more scientifically. He understood the art of tying a man very well indeed, for one of the games of his old scout patrol had involved tying up one scout after another to see if they could free themselves. And when he had done, he stepped back with a smile of satisfaction. "I don't believe he'll get himself free very soon," he said. "He'll be lucky if that knock on the head keeps him unconscious for a long time, because he'll wake up with a headache, and if he stays as he is, he won't know how uncomfortable he is." "Are we going to leave him like that, Harry?" "We've got to, Dick. But he'll be all right. I'm going to telephone Colonel Throckmorton and tell him to send here for him." but to do so at night, and so that no one will notice. He won't starve or die of thirst. I can easily manage to describe this place so that whoever the colonel sends will find it. Come on!" They went back to their cycles and rode on until they came to a place where they could telephone. Harry explained guardedly, and they went on. End of chapter 5, part 2. Recording by Kangaroo.